Alright, what's going on, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. I've been offline for quite some time because I've been taking care of a lot of midterms. Let's just say I haven't done that great in not all of them. But regardless, now that I got all of them out of the way, I can now start focusing on making videos for you guys. And today we're gonna break down a generational UFC fight card, Marvin Vettori versus Roman Dolidze 2. Two future middleweight champions in their prime, going back at it again in the sequel that everyone has been asking for at the UFC Apex. All right, in all seriousness, this card is absolute ass cheeks, but I'm going to break it down anyways because what else would you be watching on a Saturday night? I'm going to start with the early prelims, ending with the main event. So, without wasting any more time, let's jump straight into the video. Starting off with the early prelims, we got Unesi Dubin versus Carly Judas. Now, I know Carly Judas's record is abysmal, but I think she's a lot better than her record would indicate. She lost to Gabriel Fernandez, who is basically a Brazilian male, and Cascade, who is pretty good in my opinion. That being said, I have no idea why Carly Judas is a favorite according to the odds makers because Unesi Dubin will most likely knock out Carly Judas brutally in the first round or two. Dubin is making her UFC debut after she slumped out Shannon Clark cold in the first round with a nasty overhand right. If you haven't checked that out, it's a sick knockout because it's rare to see one girl slumped out cold like that in women's MMA. And also, you look through Dubin's regional career, she's consistently getting first round KOs via head kicks, overhand rights. Overall, that overhand right is the norm for Dubin fight. It's very rare to see a WMMA prospect go out there and consistently knock their opponents out in the first round or two. Now, maybe Judas could edge out a decision if this fight passes the first round, but I don't think so because Dubin is riding a lot of momentum coming into this fight, and that makes a huge difference in my opinion. I don't think Dubin's really going to be tested until she gets near the rankings of the women's flyweight division. So I'm going to pick Dubin to get this done by round 1 or 2 TKO. We move up the card to Josiane Nunes versus Priscilla Capoeira. I'm picking Priscilla Capoeira. I know Capoeira is coming off losses, but they aren't bad losses by any means. Miranda Maverick and Jasmine Jasudavicius are not bad losses. These two are very skilled compared to the rest of the competition of the flyweight division. Plus, Maverick and Jasudavicius were able to beat Capoeira via jiu-jitsu. I don't see that threat in Nunes' game. Nunes is a 5'2" brawler, and I think this plays into Capoeira's game very well. Capoeira has a lot of power in her hands, and unless you can take her down or also have power in your hands, I think Capoeira beats you easily. Um, if I'm wrong, I don't really care that much though, because it's goddamn Josiane Nunes versus Priscilla Capoeira. But I think Kakura can find a knockout shot against Nunes, and we're going to move on to the next fight. We move up the card to Andre Lima versus Daniel Barez. I'm taking Andre Lima to win this fight. Now, it's really hard for me to gauge where Daniel Barez stacks up in the flyweight division because, on the one hand, he lost to Jafel Vilho, who's a wicked submission artist, so no shame in losing to him. But at the same time, Perez's only win is coming against Victor Altamirano via decision. The fact that you took Altamirano to a decision is concerning because Altamirano is not good. I know Perez has fought some really skilled guys in the regional scene, like a Manel Cap, but that was over 10 years ago, and he lost to Cap by round one sub. That doesn't really tell me much. So, with that being said, I'm picking Andre Lima to win this fight. Lima has shown some capability of controlling the back and riding out dominant positions throughout his fights. I don't think Lima is nearly as good as Jafel Filho, but Lima is coming off a lot of momentum, and he's only 26 years old. That's pretty good for a prospect. I'm picking Andre Lima to get this done via comfortable decision or by possible submission because Perez has consistently lost via sub throughout the majority of his fights. But either way, I'm confident Lima can get the job done. We move up the card to Sam Hughes versus Stephanie Luciano. I'm being completely honest with you guys. I don't know who Stephanie Luciano is, but I'm picking her to win because I just can't pick Sam Hughes to win a fight. I know Sam Hughes is coming off a win against Victoria Dudakova, but in hindsight, Dudakova is terrible. And even the Dudakova matchup, the only reason the UFC booked that fight was because they expected Dudakova to get a highlight reel KO or submission. Sam Hughes is typically matched up with every female prospect that the UFC actually want to promote. So I'm not about to pick Sam Hughes to win a fight in 2025. I don't care if I'm wrong, though. I just can't trust Sam Hughes to win a fight in 2025. Therefore, I'm picking Stephanie Luciano to win this fight. Moving up the card, Josias Musasa versus Carlos Vera. This is pretty straightforward. Musasa is going to win this fight. The only question is how. Musasa is young, athletic, talented, and he's got a lot of grit, which is something Carlos Vera's never displayed while in the UFC. Carlos Vera will flop around like a retard fish out of the water, trying to look for heel hooks rather than actually trying to win a fight. He will willingly put himself in bad positions and lose the fight if it means not getting chinned. I don't have any doubt that Musasa will win this fight because this is kind of a layup the UFC is giving him. Therefore, it's a matter of whether or not he's going to knock out Carlos Vera. And I'm tentatively saying that he doesn't. One thing I don't like about Musasa is his activity while in clinch or some awkward grappling positions. Like he does a great job defending takedowns and submission attempts, but I don't really see him do anything past that, at least offensively. If he does knock out Carlos Vera, I will genuinely be impressed because although Vera is basically a fish on land when it comes to actually fighting, he's weirdly hard to finish, especially if the fight hits the ground. Therefore, I say that Musasa wins by decision, but I'm not discrediting the idea of a knockout shot. And if he does knock out Carlos Vera, I think that's going to be really impressive. We're going to move on to Su Yo Young Yo versus AJ Cunningham. I'm going with Su Young Yo. I'm not just picking Yo because he is Korean. I just don't like the fact that AJ Cunningham is all of a sudden fighting at bantamweight. Cunningham got sparked out by Ludovic Klein in the first round last year, who is a 155 pounder. I know the fight was on short notice, but I just don't like the fact that Cunningham is dropping down two weight classes after a brutal knockout loss. The chin's going to be worse. The people Cunningham will be fighting are a lot more skilled, and the weight cut is going to be a lot harder for Cunningham, as if he isn't basically holding on to a thread that the UFC can cut at any time. I believe Sue is going to showcase some of his dominant Sue style grappling, and honestly, I can see a submission because Cunningham isn't good to begin with. Cunningham is a certified can crusher, and I honestly can't explain why the UFC still has him signed on the roster in 2025. I don't believe Cunningham is UFC level, but Sue is. And now Sue doesn't really have the highest finishing potential, but if there's anyone I believe he can finish, it's probably AJ Cunningham. We move up the card to Waldo Cortez Acosta versus Ryan Spann. Ryan Spann is making his heavyweight debut, and I honestly see him finishing Waldo Cortez Acosta within the first two rounds. Acosta has very little technical skills. He doesn't really know how to fight aggressively. He doesn't have any knockout power whatsoever. He's just a fat fuck who knows how to move his feet. Ben is actually talented, aggressive, athletic, and disciplined enough to not be a complete blob like Waldo Cortez Acosta. I seriously don't understand why people are picking Cortez Acosta to win this fight. He literally went tit for tat with 44-year-old Andrei Arlovsky not that long ago. I know Costa beat Robelis to Spain. To Spain, in hindsight, is garbage. This is the first time Acosta is going to have to fight someone actually dangerous. And I believe Ryan Spann, although he can be dumb at times, the skill difference between Spann and Acosta is too great. I'm picking Spann to win this fight via finish. We're going to move on to the main card, Kevin Vallejos versus Sung Woo Choi. I'm picking Kevin Vallejos. No offense, Choi. I do root for you in your fights, but my brain tells me that Vallejos is going to whoop your ass. Vallejos, for those of you who don't know, he fought Jan Silva a few years back during the Dana White Contender Series, and he went the distance with Silva, which is really impressive looking back at that fight. Since then, Vallejos has gotten three finishes outside of the UFC, and now the UFC are putting this guy against Sung Woo Choi, who doesn't have all that great of a record recently. Choi's track record, he got finished in the first round by Steve Garcia. That happens. I'm not going to look too deep into that. He beat John Aaron's, which doesn't really tell me much because Aaron's isn't that good. He then lost to Michael Trezano, Josh Colabel, and Alex Cruceres. And don't get me wrong, some of these guys are pretty good, but it's worrying because he's lost four out of his last five fights. And most importantly, I think Vallejos' boxing is super clean. We've seen him implement them against John Silva, and now he's coming into the UFC as an actual prospect to be on the lookout for. Now, there is a chance that Troy can knock out Vallejos, but the problem with Troy is that he's chinny, but loves to swing hooks in the pocket for some reason. It works sometimes, but I think this plays right into Vallejos' game because, again, his pocket boxing is fucking nasty. Part of me does root for Sung Woo Choi, but I say that Vallejos gets the job done, probably by round one or two TKO. We move up the card to DR Nergozai versus Benson Ribeiro. I'm going to be completely honest. I don't know who this Nergozai actually is, but based on recent trends, I'm going to pick Nergozai to win this fight. Every time Ribeiro is supposed to fight, he's always matched up against the next prospect of the light heavyweight division that the UFC is actually keen on taking care of. He got sparked out by Ming Yang Zhang, got dominated by Magomed Anksilov. I know he beat Caio Machado, but that was a dog shit fight. And let's be honest, Caio Machado doesn't even deserve to be in the UFC in the first place. Again, anyone without the BMI of Lizzo and someone with actual talent will beat Benson Ribeiro without question. The only question we need to ask ourselves is the method of victory. A lot of people are saying by knockout, but I'm not really sure because I've never watched Nergozai fight before. But I'm very confident that Nergozai is going to win this fight because Ribeiro is a punching bag the UFC brings out for any light heavyweight prospect they actually want to build. We're moving up the card to Damon Blackshear versus Cody Gibson. I'm going with Damon Blackshear to win this fight. Blackshear is a very tough challenge for anyone outside the rankings of the bantamweight division. He's got a wicked arsenal of submissions, and unless you're Montel Jackson, who can just spark people out in 20 seconds, I don't see that many people really beating Damon Blackshear. Now, Cody Gibson, he's good, but he's not really going up against elite level competition like a Damon Blackshear. He beat Chad Annaliger and Brian Kelleher using his jiu-jitsu. That doesn't really say much. I don't really see that working against a guy like Damon Blackshear. And if anything, I see Blackshear being the one to out grapple Cody Gibson. And on the feet, I just believe that Blackshear will put up a high enough pace because, again, he should have beat Bautista, and his only loss is to Montel Jackson, who is underrated as fuck. I'm picking Damon Blackshear to get the job done, probably by submission if I had to go with anything, but if not, he's going to ride out a comfortable decision. We're going to move on to Alexander Hernandez versus Kurt Holobaugh. I'm picking Alexander Hernandez. This is very straightforward. First off, this is lightweight, which I really like for Hernandez. And second, Kurt Holobaugh presents zero dangers whatsoever. Yes, Hernandez has looked shaky in his last few fights, but they were in altitude or against featherweights. But now that Hernandez has moved back up to lightweight, I think he's going to look a lot cleaner, especially on the feet, which he has a massive advantage over Kurt Holobaugh. Like, I'm sorry, if Trey Ogden's beating your ass by pressing forward, then I just can't pick you to win a fight on feet. Maybe Holloway can implement takedowns and grind out the later rounds, but Hernandez seems to be pacing himself a little bit better than before, which was his kryptonite. Kryptonite. Therefore, I'm picking Hernandez to get the job done. We move on to the co-main event: Elijah Zaleski dos Santos versus Chidi Njokuani. I'm picking Zaleski dos Santos to win this fight straight up. I believe dos Santos is very experienced. Although he loves to strike, he will shoot takedowns and grapple if necessary, and that's what's going to happen in this fight. Njokuani is a phenomenal Muay Thai fighter, but in MMA, he's not that good because he just gives up at the first sign of adversity, especially if the fight gets to the ground. We've seen that in the Mikhail Olasechuk fight, the Albert Duraev fight, and even the Gregory Rodriguez fight. I do get it for Rodriguez because Rodriguez's jiu-jitsu is nasty, but again, it's not a great look in hindsight. And if this fight is left on the feet, I don't see Njokuani putting away Dos Santos. I do think, by the numbers, Njokuani does have an advantage, but not by much. I think on the feet, Njokuani slight advantage, but in the grappling department, it's night and day between Dos Santos and Njokuani. I don't know if Dos Santos is really going to implement submissions, but if the fight hits the ground, I see Dos Santos having his way with Njokuani because, again, Njokuani has shown zero grappling in any of his fights whatsoever. Moving on to the main event, we have Marvin Vettori versus Roman Dolidze, the rematch that everyone has been dying to see. I'm picking Marvin Vettori. I'm sorry, I just can't pick Roman Dolidze to win a fight, especially in 2025. I know Dolidze's coming off a two-fight win streak, but it's against Anthony Smith and Kevin Holland. I'm not saying Vettori is much better than either of those guys, but he's not a quitter, and I think that makes a huge difference. We've seen how dog shit Dolidze looked in their first fight, and since then, I can't really tell that much of an improvement. He still looks sloppy on the feet. He can barely implement takedowns in this game, and I see this being a 5 round session of mid. Just watch his fight with Nasruddin Imavov. It actually amazes me that Imavov couldn't put away Dolidze in the first round because Dolidze's a drunk uncle that swings overhand rights nonstop, and I don't know how else I can explain Dolidze's style. Maybe Dolidze actually implements jabs and double legs in this fight, and maybe Dolidze's gonna go on a title run for the ages. But I just don't see it. Dolidze is dog shit, even though Vittori isn't that much better. I think he's at least better than Dolidze. I just can't pick Dolidze to ever win a fight, even if he's coming off a huge win streak. Therefore, Vittori will get the job done. Alright, that's where I'm gonna end this video for today. Quick note, I'm gonna be on vacation over the next few days, but I'm still gonna try to upload videos. I don't know how frequently I can do that, but note that I don't know how the lighting will look like in the hotel, so bear in mind if the lighting looks like shit, just go with it for a week or so. But regardless, thank you for 100 subs. Continue to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.